Why do some people never post their photos online? Are they insecure, or are they operating on a higher level of psychological mastery? In this video, we decode the Machiavellian psychology behind the unseen and reveal how silence, privacy, and restraint can become your greatest tools of personal power. There is a peculiar kind of power in what is not shown. In a world where every face is offered like currency, where every smile is crafted to be consumed, the one who keeps their image hidden stands apart. They are not absent, they are unreachable. Their silence is not emptiness but intention. Their invisibility is not lack but design. And while the masses rush to display themselves, to prove themselves, to reassure themselves that they exist through the eyes of others, this individual chooses restraint. They choose to remain unseen, and therefore unjudged, unmeasured, unknown. When a person does not post their photos on social media, many assume shyness, insecurity, or social awkwardness. But what if the opposite is true? What if the one who withholds is the one who understands the game too well? Because understand this, the moment you show your face, you step into the arena of comparison. You become part of the spectacle. You allow others to weigh you, categorize you, define you, and above all, predict you. But the unseen cannot be categorized. They cannot be reduced. They cannot be psychologically controlled. Mystery is a form of power that demands more effort from others. When you cannot easily read a person, your mind begins to work harder. You wonder, you interpret, you speculate. And the more you speculate, the more attention you give. The one who posts nothing does not disappear. No, their silence creates a gravitational pull. Whether intentional or instinctive, they gain something that others are constantly trying to manufacture: intrigue. And intrigue is influence. Think of how rulers once operated. The king did not walk the streets every day. He appeared rarely, briefly, always with purpose. His presence was an event, not a routine. The less he was seen, the more powerful his presence became. A person who posts their face every day becomes familiar, predictable, ordinary. Familiarity breeds indifference. The mind stops paying attention. But the rare, the concealed, the unoffered, that which cannot be easily accessed, becomes valuable. Many people today do not realize how deeply the need for validation has infiltrated their behavior. A person posts their face, waits for the reaction, counts the approval, adjusts themselves based on the applause. They tie their identity to response, but the one who does not display themselves refuses to play. They refuse to be measured by external scales. Their self-image is not crowdsourced. They hold themselves for themselves. To remain unseen in a world that begs you to reveal yourself requires a certain mental posture. It is not merely privacy. It is sovereignty. It is the knowledge that my existence does not require your confirmation. This is not withdrawal, it is independence. And independence in its purest form is intimidating. People often become uncomfortable with those they cannot decode. They prefer transparency, not because transparency builds trust, but because transparency allows control. When someone keeps themselves private, others cannot control the story. They cannot decide who that person is. And when they cannot decide, they feel powerless. Powerlessness breeds fascination. Even the way others talk about such individuals reveals the effect. What don't they post? What are they hiding? Or are they different? In truth, they may be living simply. They may be ordinary. But by not displaying themselves, they become extraordinary in perception. And perception is everything. Because visibility is a double-edged sword. The more you reveal, the more others feel they understand you. And the more they believe they understand you, the less they respect you. Respect is born from distance. Admiration is born from partial knowledge. Influence grows not from constant presence, but from controlled presence. The art of showing just enough, and never more than necessary. Those who do not post their photos are not always refusing the world. Sometimes they are simply choosing themselves. They do not need the mirror of the crowd to see their own reflection. Their identity lives inward, not outward. And this inward identity cannot be shaken easily. It does not bend to trends, opinions, or the invisible pressure to prove one's worth. In a time where visibility is often mistaken for significance, choosing invisibility can be the most significant act of all. There is a quiet rebellion happening in plain sight. Not loud, not dramatic, not shouted through posts or captions, but silent, subtle, and deeply intentional. In a world trained to perform for attention, there are people who choose to remain unseen. Not because they have nothing to show, but because they refuse to measure themselves by public applause. They do not chase likes, reactions, or digital approval. Their worth does not rise and fall with the algorithm, and that makes them remarkably free. Most people do not realize how deeply tied they are to validation until they are deprived of it. A photo posted online is rarely just a photo. It is a question A question asked to the word, do you see me? Do you approve of me? Am I enough? And when the answers come in the form of likes, hearts, or fleeting praise, it feels like affirmation. It feels like belonging, but beneath that is dependence. Because now your identity has an external source. You become conditioned to seek it again and again. The crowd becomes the mirror through which you understand yourself. But the person who does not post their photos does not ask that question. They do not require confirmation to exist. They do not negotiate their value with the world. They are not dependent on whether others notice them, remember them, or applaud them. Their life is not performed, it is lived. Their self-image is internal, rooted, unshaken by public silence. And that creates a level of mental independence that is rare. To not seek validation is to remove yourself from the invisible competition that exhausts so many minds. Comparison ceases, performance ceases. The pressure to maintain an image dissolves. The person who does not post is no longer playing in the arena of who looks better, who appears happier, who seems more successful. They are simply living in their own lane, at their own pace, without the need for witness. But this freedom does not come from indifference alone. It comes from awareness. To withdraw from validation, you must first recognize how the need for validation controls people. The scrolling, the posting, the waiting, the refreshing. These are not casual habits. They are behavioral loops, and they shape identity more than we realize. The silent individual sees this. They understand that attention is addictive, and that addiction leads to dependency. So they choose not to feed it. They choose to reclaim their autonomy. This decision is not always loud or conscious. Sometimes it is instinctual. Some people simply do not feel the need to prove anything. They do not feel the pressure to display their life as evidence of its value. They are content with their own experience, even if no one else sees it. Their happiness is not performative. Their achievements do not require an audience. Their joy exists in the moment itself, not in the display of the moment. But there is another layer to this. When you no longer seek validation, something changes in the way you move through the world. You begin to act according to your own standards, not the crowd's. You choose what you like, not what is trending. You pursue what fulfills you, not what looks impressive. Your choices become authentic. Your sense of self becomes stable. And your presence gains weight. Not because you are loud, but because you are sovereign. People feel this. Even without photos, without posts, without constant updates, others sense something different about you. A calm, a confidence, a stillness. While others are reaching outward, you are grounded inward. And this inner grounding is incredibly hard to shake. Opinions lose their power. Criticism does not penetrate. Praise does not control. You remain the same whether someone applauds or ignores you. And that is the kind of power that cannot be bought or faked. In a social world built on exposure, choosing privacy becomes a statement. It says, I do not depend on being seen to feel real. It says, I am not shaped by the crowd. I am shaped by myself. And when a person reaches that level of independence, they no longer compete. They no longer perform. They simply are. There is something strategic about a person who chooses when to be seen and when to remain invisible. Most people believe presence is power, that the more they show, the stronger their identity becomes. But those who understand human psychology know the opposite can be true. Power often lies not in constant visibility, but in control of exposure. The one who is always present becomes ordinary. The one who appears selectively becomes significant. When someone does not post their photos on social media, it does not mean they are entirely absent from the world. They are simply the architect of their own image. They choose what is revealed and what remains concealed. Every appearance is intentional, not habitual. Every detail is chosen, not spilled. They do not feed the crowd endlessly. They offer only fragments, and only when there is purpose. This is not randomness. This is calculation. The same kind of calculation great leaders, performers, and philosophers used long before social media existed. Think about how the human mind works. When something is always in front of us, we stop valuing it. The constant becomes invisible. Familiarity dulls perception, but when something appears only at the right moment, it commands attention. Scarcity sharpens interest. The person who rarely shows themselves activates curiosity. People begin to pay closer attention to what little is shared. They examine words more deeply. They assign meaning where none was explicitly given. Silence creates interpretation, and interpretation creates influence. This is the psychology of a controlled persona. A persona is not a mask. It is a narrative. Most people let others write that narrative for them. They post impulsively. They respond emotionally. They reveal too much of their personal life, their insecurities, their relationships, their inner world. And once it is out there, it is no longer theirs. The crowd now holds it, shapes it, comments on it, defines it. But the one who practices selective exposure ensures that narrative remains in their hands. They decide how they are seen. They decide how much is known. They decide how much access others are allowed to have. And this selective access changes the power dynamic. The less someone reveals, the harder they are to evaluate. And people fear what they cannot easily read or admire it, or desire it, or all three. This strategy also shields them in ways others may not recognize. When you reveal too much, you give people the tools to attack you. Insecurities, habits, vulnerabilities, emotional triggers. Exposure makes them available. But when you reveal only what you choose, you decide what people know. And what people cannot see, they cannot use. Privacy becomes protection. Restraint becomes armor. But selective exposure is not about coldness or secrecy for its own sake. It is about presence with purpose. When they speak, it matters because they do not speak constantly. When they show themselves, it matters because they do not do it daily. Their image is not diluted by repetition. Their presence is not casual. People take note because the opportunity to see or hear them feels meaningful, not routine. This calculated approach also affects how relationships form around them. Connections are more intentional, deep, and chosen, not based on performance or digital persona, but on experiences that are real and private. Trust is built slowly. Access is earned, and those allowed into their inner world are not spectators, but participants. This is how loyalty forms. Not through public exhibition, but through private depth. Selective exposure also reflects a deep understanding of emotional energy. Constant performance drains a person. Maintaining a curated identity in public spaces takes mental bandwidth. Trying to stay appealing, relevant, or impressive is exhausting, but the one who is not performing is conserving. Their energy is not scattered. Their identity is not fragmented. They are whole because they are not constantly projecting, and this wholeness gives them clarity. They can see themselves without needing to pose. They can experience life without needing to prove it. They can grow without needing to announce it. Growth becomes internal, not performative. And internal growth is the kind that lasts. To show yourself only when you choose is to reclaim ownership of your image, your mind, your energy, and your narrative. It is the understanding that presence is not something to waste. It is something to wield only when it serves a purpose. There is a different kind of strength that lives in those who do not need to be seen to feel real. A strength that does not seek acknowledgement, applause, or recognition. A strength that does not rise when admired or break when ignored. This is the strength of someone who has built their identity inward. Where others look outward to confirm their worth, this person looks within. And the more firmly rooted they are inside themselves, the less the outside world can influence them. When someone does not post their photos, when they do not feel compelled to participate in the constant showcasing of self, it is not because they are without identity. It is because their identity is protected. Their image exists for themselves first. Their reflection is not shaped by comments or likes or comparison. It is shaped by solitude, experience, and internal evaluation, and that creates a kind of inner fortress, a psychological structure that is solid and self-sustained. This inner fortress is not built overnight. It is formed slowly, often through silence, introspection, or the realization that external validation is unstable. A person learns, sometimes painfully, that the world changes quickly. Praise today can become judgment tomorrow. Admiration can turn into envy. Acceptance can turn into criticism. If your identity depends on others, it will always be fragile. But if your identity is held within, it cannot be shaken by the shifting weather of public opinion. Many people today are more influenced than they realize. If the crowd approves, they feel valuable. If the crowd ignores, they feel invisible. If trends shift, they shift. If others portray happiness, they copy it. Their sense of self is reactive, molded by the environment. They are not living, they are adapting. They are not defining themselves. They are responding to what others display. But the person who keeps their world private lives differently. They move from intention, not reaction. They are not shaped by trends because they are not looking outward for a standard to follow. They choose what resonates with them personally. Their style, their beliefs, their decisions, their pace. It all comes from within. They do not need to present proof of their growth or happiness to justify it. They do not need the world to see their life to feel that it has meaning. They do not need an audience to feel real. Their life is validated by the experience of living it, not by the display of it. And this internal validation makes them psychologically stable. They are less affected by judgment. Criticism does not define them. Approval does not control them. Even praise does not intoxicate them. They take everything in balance because their identity does not depend on fluctuations of attention. They have, in the simplest and most powerful sense, emotional sovereignty. This emotional sovereignty changes how they act. They are more deliberate, more calm, more grounded. Their decisions come from clarity, not insecurity. They do not chase attention, relationships, or recognition. They attract because they are whole. Their presence holds weight, even in silence. When someone who is self-defined walks into a room, people feel it, not because they demand attention, but because they do not need it. This inner fortress also grants a quieter but deeper confidence. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not require display or dramatics. It simply exists. This kind of confidence is rare because it is earned through inner work, not performance. It comes from knowing who you are when no one is watching, when no one is reacting, when no one is validating. It is the kind of confidence that says, I am enough without being seen. And there is something deeply powerful about a person who does not need to prove themselves. They hold their image the way a king holds a crown, not to show it constantly, but to protect its value. They understand that not everything precious should be public, that not every moment must be shared, that not every part of themselves must be displayed. What is kept private retains power. What is overexposed becomes ordinary. This is why the inner fortress matters. It protects the self from being diluted. It keeps identity intact. It allows a person to move through the world without bending to it. And in a society that tries so hard to shape individuals through comparison and exposure, the one who remains self-defined stands not just apart, but above. In the end, what appears to be silence is not silence at all. It is strategy. The one who does not post their photos is not hiding from the world. They are choosing how the world encounters them. They are not rejecting attention. They are refusing to be controlled by it. They are not lacking confidence. They possess a confidence that does not require an audience to survive. While others race to be seen, to prove themselves, to shape an identity through exposure, this individual shapes theirs through restraint. They cultivate mystery, and mystery draws attention more powerfully than any performance. They walk freely because they do not depend on the reactions of others. Their validation is internal. Their mind is their territory. Their identity is theirs alone. Understand this: in every era, there are those who speak to be heard, and those whose very silence makes others lean in. The world may never fully understand the person who chooses privacy in the age of constant display. And that is precisely where their power comes from. They remain unpredictable, unreachable, uninfluenced. They choose when to be seen and when to remain unseen. They do not perform, they exist. And in a world desperate to be noticed, the one who does not seek attention becomes unforgettable.